Today's episode of Vital Voices is brought to you by Oak Tree Medical Center and Wellspring Lifestyle Group.
Are you enjoying Vital Voices? Do you find our conversations educational, engaging, and inspiring? Then like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell to keep updated on new episodes and more.
Vital Voices.
Welcome to Vital Voices, the podcast where we amplify the stories, insights, and expertise of the people shaping the future of our communities, our conversations, and our country. I'm your host, Alexis Burrows. Thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about the 2025 Women's Leadership Conference, Unleash Your Power, a day designed to turn potential into performance. Joining me are Annette Cash, principal at Blue Chip Consulting and a seasoned HR leader turned entrepreneur, and Wenrick Clarke, assistant vice president of marketing and business development at Commonwealth Bank, and a featured conference speaker. Together, we'll unpack the vision behind the conference, the skills and tools attendees will gain, from negotiation and sponsorship to personal branding and burnout-proof leadership, the role of male allies, and how partners like Commonwealth Bank are turning inclusion into measurable impact. Save the date, September 19th. Now let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Annette. Obviously, we go way back, and Wenrick, this is our first time meeting, but both of you, welcome to Vital Voices.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Alexis.
So I remember seeing the first poster for this conference, I think back in May, if I'm not mistaken, on social media. I know you and I had some initial conversations about potentially working together. And now here we are having you as a guest on the show to talk about this exciting initiative. I know leadership training development, especially as it speaks to women in the corporate space, is something that's near and dear to your heart. So we are excited to talk through this with you. And obviously you have one of your featured speakers who's here with us today as well to talk about his viewpoint on it, why Commonwealth Bank decided to come alongside as a sponsor, why he's involved as a speaker, and look at that as well. So let's just start at the top. Unleash Your Power. It's a very catching name. There's been a lot of phrases in recent times, especially with women, about reclaim your power, all of these different things. But from your perspective, what does unleash your power mean to you personally?
So, Alexis, the word unleash, the definition speaks to unearthing and almost a sudden burst of energy. And so for us, and for me in particular, unleash your power speaks to digging deep and finding that untapped potential that lies within. And so at the conference, our aim is to let the women attendees know that within all of us, there's something that we do not know exists or something that we still have the potential to use.
So when I think about unleashing one's power or potential, I imagine a volcano. There's a lot of energy that's building up that just needs to have the lid popped off of it to see the beauty of, in this case, lava, but in the essence, to see the beauty of what's really underneath all of what has been maybe covered for so long. And so it's about breaking barriers, about unlocking your greatness. It's about stepping into your power, releasing the greatness that's on the inside of you, and breaking the limits and the barriers and the glass ceiling. Those are the things that I think about when I hear unleashing your power.
Awesome. Yeah. So why this conference, Annette, and why now?
So I full transparency, Alexis, I have been writing ideas for this for over 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And last year, I actually shared the idea with a coworker. And she was like, okay, so if you have this conference, you can do this and you can do that. And her excitement about it was energizing for me. And so even this year, I remember being at church. And the sermon that Sunday was about God planting a seed. And sometimes we're so afraid to follow the word that he has given to us. And when I heard that message, it inspired me. I said, well, okay, Annette, you can't keep writing. It's been over 2 years. It's time to put the thoughts into action. And so I called a small group of friends and colleagues, former colleagues together, and I said, this is something I believe that God wants me to do, but I can't do this alone. And each of them in their own individual way, they were very extremely supportive. And so the journey started in February 2025.
Awesome. So, as the principal behind Blue Chip and also as the primary face, voice, mind behind the conference, from your vantage point, what would make you say after the event on September 19th, we nailed it?
In human resources, and as a certified trainer, one of the things that we do when we do learning and development activities is that it's our job to measure the impact of those training and development initiatives. And so for me, a key measurement would be when these women exit the doors of the 2025 Unleash Your Power Conference. Many of the organizations that have registered already, I know the executive or senior leaders in those organizations who were so enthusiastic about sending their people. So it is our intention to follow up to see, have you seen a change in performance and attitude in the workplace? But in addition to that, we will be have an evaluation form where we get the feedback from them about what we did well and what we could have done differently. And finally, I would say the enthusiasm, because Alexis, I can tell you, we will have a DJ in the room, and this is not going to be the ordinary conference.
Right.
I keep saying it's going to be an experience. So the kind of energy and feedback we get from them at the end of that day will let me know they've been inspired to do something different with their lives.
Awesome. So, you're a seasoned HR professional. You've been working in HR for a number of years. What problem did you see, or what challenges did you face in a traditional space that kind of made you say, you know what, I think consulting is going to put me in a better position to solve that? Like, what basically drove the transition from a standard, 9-to-5 corporate Bahamas job into, I'm going to start my own firm, we're going to do consulting, and we're going to create a conference like this as a part of what we do?
So in corporate Bahamas, and from my various experiences, financial services, education, healthcare, one of the things that I've often found is, particularly with human resources, every leader feels that they feel they know HR. They feel they're the experts. And so I always say, my husband is an accountant. Accountants go to school to learn accounting. Lawyers go to school to learn law. Doctors and physicians, nurses, they go to school, they learn medicine, they learn healthcare. As an HR professional and somebody who has a master's degree in human resources, I went to school to study HR. Right. And so for me, working in corporate Bahamas, sometimes I felt that the voice of HR was not respected. And so in a consultant role, you have, I think, rather than being an employee, as a consultant, organizations see you differently, and they value the information and the guidance that you provide to them. And so for me, that has been more rewarding.
It sounds like marketing. I know a lot of spaces I've walked into, everybody felt like they know to do marketing as well. So it's an interesting dynamic. I appreciate kind of what led you into that direction. What would you say is the biggest lesson that you've taken from corporate HR into this conference?
I think connecting with people. And so one of the stories I can definitely share is that I have an amazing team of people who are working with me on planning this conference. And along my life's journey, I've worked or I've known each of them from, like I said, either a workspace or a human resources space. And so what I've learned and realized actually on the very first meeting I had with them, and I shared the story, they made me cry because they were like, you didn't realize it at that point, but you advocated for me or you poured into me. Because I remember being at one of my workspaces, and I've always been an advocate of growing women leaders because I always felt we had a unique story to tell. And sometimes we were silenced from telling our version of the story. And so I remember being in one of my workplaces, there were just five people that reported to me, and I bought each of them a book called Know Your Value by Mika Brzezinski, who appears on MSNBC. So at the time, I said to my one-up, this is a book I want to read with my staff. And so I said what I'd like to do every other Friday for the next few weeks. I assigned each of them 2 chapters that they had to read, and then when we met at Starbucks outside of the organization,
Right.
and we discussed those 2 chapters each person read, and everybody contributed to it. And so it is that kind of growing and those kinds of experiences, I find that people remember how you've touched their life in a tangible way.
Yeah.
And so for me, this conference is about bringing not only women leaders in organizations, the president of Commonwealth Bank or the senior VP at Atlantis, but also the customer service rep, the teller, the pharmacy tech, bringing all of these women from different walks of life, different levels, different generations together to share and inspire.
Awesome. You know, are there specific outcomes that you are looking for, you know, especially the women leaders who are going to be taking part in this conference? Are there particular things that you want them to be able to say has happened as a result or coming out of what they've learned or experienced at the conference?
Absolutely. In researching what makes for an excellent conference, one of the things that I've shared with all of the speakers is the ability to tell personal stories. I think those stories and experiences resonate most with people. And so coming out of this, for example, one of the topics we're going to be discussing, or one of the speakers will speak on, is Power Up, women who lift as they climb. And so a powerful woman like the senior VP of Atlantis, we want her to tell her story. What were some of the challenges that you encountered as you climbed to senior VP of HR at Atlantis? There were definitely challenges, obstacles that she had to overcome, not only from her male counterparts, but women in the organization as well. How did you deal with them? Share your story so that I can learn from that story.
That's important because I think sometimes, you know, there's a phrase that one of my friends uses a lot. I'm balancing how I want to say it, but it's the concept of gals hate gals. That's the phraseology that he uses, right? And I think a lot of times you see in instances, especially in corporate, where you feel like there's this fight to climb to the top and you don't necessarily always have, hey, I'm going to reach back down and help. Now, granted, I think that happens across both genders, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But particularly, I think sometimes people look at what may be like the cattiness and things that may happen amongst women. And that's kind of, I think, what you're looking to combat by saying, no, tell your story and encourage other people who are, you know, either emerging or mid-career women who are trying to climb and say, you know, these are some tools, these are some ways that can help you navigate the space. And combat that narrative of women not helping other women up. And I think just the existence of the conference alone helps to do that. So, you know, you have voices from across corporate Bahamas. You have finance, you have HR, you have law, academia, health. You know, what unifies the content and why such a broad, I guess, range of speakers?
So what unifies the content, as I said, is the ability for women to connect with other women at all levels, all generations.
And to be clear, this is not just for HR professionals.
This is not just for HR.
Any career.
This is not. So far our registrants have come from banking. They have come from healthcare. We have financial services. So this is for every woman in every industry. Right? And so when we meet up, one of the taglines we've been using for this conference is, when women get together, great things happen. And so law, like you said, academia, it doesn't matter. But our conference speakers, Alexis, as you've seen, they're experts in their own right. I know basically every one of them I've worked with or just know personally. And so they're experts. They have people who have the academic and technical backgrounds to speak to all of the topics that we will have going up. So for example, again, Wenrick, who sits right beside me, Wenrick has a very wide background in financial services. He has worked with women leaders in the Bahamas, Barbados, Trinidad, Amsterdam. Those are the stories, because the women that he has worked with, not only the Bahamas, but the Caribbean and internationally, we want to hear about what were some of the cultural differences that you experienced, right? And how can I navigate, because I work in an organization that is headquartered in Switzerland. I work in an organization that's headquartered in Bermuda. Wenrick, how do I do this? And he's going to tell us those stories.
Yeah, and I think that's helpful because, it's forward thinking as well. You're not looking at just climbing, not even just, so obviously, like you mentioned, you have people who are coming from businesses that have headquarters around the world, but you also may have people who are coming in and they may have eyes on, I want to transition into working into the US or working in Europe or somewhere like that. And so that's very helpful in terms of how you plan to navigate the different cultural spaces that you may walk into.
I would only add as well that another topic we will be discussing is women and their role in a global economy. There is no better person than Annette Cash to speak to something like that. Someone who has worked and lived in the Bahamas, but as well as New York City, right? And so a consummate professional who's constantly reading and understanding the world around him. And so I believe that women have a unique place in understanding and making their way in a global economy. So we want to be educated, learn, and then be inspired.
Yeah. It's important that you mention, obviously, you have Annette Cash, you have Wenrick Clarke, you also have Dr. Richard Adderley, and I presume sometimes when you see conferences like this, you will see an entirely female speaker lineup. I do gather that you were very intentional on having male inclusion in your speaker list. Why do you think it's important to have male allies in a conference like this? And then also, why do you think it's important to have the male perspective? And then I guess I'll get Wenrick to chime in on this as well.
So our world is diverse. Every institution in our lives is diverse. They're made up of different types of people. And certainly there's the gender, the male and the female. So we don't live in a microcosm, we live in communities. And so we work with our male counterparts, and we work with them very closely. So even in my own experiences, Alexis, I've worked with you. You were in marketing. I worked with Wenrick as a banking leader. And so building those relationships with our male counterparts, when we go or we step into the boardroom and there's something important, a new project that HR wants to pursue, before I enter the boardroom, I want to secure the support of my male counterparts and any counterpart before I step into that room. Right. And so this is going to teach us that, hey, we have to learn how to network and build relationships. And so the topic that Wenrick will be speaking on, and he'll say a little bit more about that, is collaborate, don't emasculate, because we realize that, again, it's about building relationships in order for us to be successful as individuals and in order for our organizations to be successful.
Yeah, because I think the message you're trying to get across, even just as you speak through some of the topics, is that, people can grow and climb together. You don't have to put someone else down in order to climb the corporate ladder. I think so often we look at it as that's the only way. Or that's, we see a lot of
individualistic
TV and in media and even in some of the realms that we see locally. But, from your perspective, that idea of collaborate, not emasculate, can you kind of expand on that just a little bit? We don't want to give away your talk, obviously, but kind of speak to why it's important to kind of have that conversation as well.
No, I think it's very important because you can have parties working in the same environment, male and female. We work in the same office space and have two completely different sets of experiences or even realities or perceived realities. And so sometimes having the context and having the conversation of what that experience feels and looks like in a very open, transparent, and authentic way actually leads to greater collaboration and understanding and synergy in the workplace as well. Understanding that we can bring our own sets of experiences to the table to make the environment and the space that we're in better. and we could help each other to grow in that context as well, and not have to compete in a way that is divisive or undermining or tearing down at each other, but we can grow in a joint way to have equal success.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned to this point in my experience is that the collaboration, regardless of gender, is an important part of the navigating the workspace. I think people will often try to use like the dirty word, like, office politics, but it really is, it's how you network, it's how you understand personalities, behaviors, like you said, experiences, perceived experiences, and how all of those kind of interplay together to create what everyone's experience is as they walk through the office. And as people are equally trying to grow their career, climb the corporate ladder, things like that. So it sounds like a very interesting and engaging topic that I'm sure your audience is going to enjoy and get a lot out of. I don't want you to get any of your speakers angry, but like if you had to say 2 sessions that you expect to be most hands-on, and what kind of tools can your attendees expect to take away from this conference?
So I believe in terms of tools, the information that will be shared with each topic, there will be value in every topic that we will have discussed on conference day. And so the idea for me is oftentimes it's good to take a step back and look at somebody who has been what you've been through, and someone who you may have perceived at a distance who is a role model. And so I think that for example, the first female president of any commercial bank in the country, in the form of Denise Turnquest, hearing from someone like her who has experienced so much, that will be inspiring. And so, the tools will be, we're giving you this information, but we want you to utilize this information once you've had the experience of conference day.
Okay. So let's take a look. You're coming in, Wenrick, from a perspective of being an assistant vice president, correct? And working in the marketing space, but also business development. For you, what made you say yes to, taking part in this conference, both from the standpoint as a speaker, but also as a sponsor? And then what is, from your perspective, what is the business case, so to speak, for advancing female leadership?
Well, great question. First of all, how do you say no to Annette Cash? That's the first thing.
Facts.
But no, Annette has also played a pivotal role in my growth and my personal development. And over the years, we've stayed in contact as well. And so when she reached out about participating, no issue, no, I'm happy to support in any way I can. But why on the stage? A lot of the success that I've had in my life and in my career has been because of the impact of women. Women have played a pivotal role in my life, from my grandmother to my first leader in banking, Elnora Major, to the leaders I've had at RBC, Commonwealth Bureau, everywhere I've been, and now at Commonwealth Bank, my president being a woman. And so for me, when I think back over my life, I think, my goodness, there's no way I could possibly be enjoying the kind of success I do in my professional life or in my personal life without having had the guiding hands and nurture and school of hard knocks that my women leaders have really impacted and imparted to me. And so from that perspective, happy to take part. And then also from a sponsorship perspective, while yes, our president is going to be participating at Commonwealth Bank, we also understand the role that women leaders play. We have a lot of women leaders in the organization who add tremendous value, consummate professionals that are really changing the game and adding a lot of value in the financial services space. And so for me, being able to participate is both an honor and also a testament to the impact that these women have had in my life as well.
And I can attest to that. I've worked in a couple of spaces where my direct report was a woman, and even just in terms of navigating work issues and going through it with my wife, I find that women tend to help take the edge off of how I think men sometimes tend to be quick to respond and oftentimes quick to perhaps over respond. And I find that women help to kind of guide you in that process and saying, okay, that's not quite the right way to approach it. Or, like you said, kind of that nurturing arm that, you need sometimes in the corporate space, even though people may not see it or may not understand it, but there's a tremendous value in having it in the space. Right. And not to undercut it, but we actually have a number of female leaders across corporate Bahamas in a lot of different environments, a lot of different industries. So I don't think, and I don't think you're putting this forth, but this is not to say that we don't have them, but it's just how do we continue to grow and how do we continue to increase the impact that these women are having in the environment.
Absolutely.
So from your perspective, obviously sitting in the role of an AVP, what are 3 metrics that you watch for, and what does good look like in 2025?
And this is pertaining to women in leadership?
Yes.
Okay, so for me, it's about how you show up, right? Are you bringing to the table your best self? You're the most authentic version of yourself. Notwithstanding the other voices in the room, you still are able to hold your own and deliver as well. Because while, yes, there have been a lot of initiatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is necessary and I support 100%, there's also the great deal of acumen that women bring to the table as well, and are capable of doing any job at any level in any organization. And so ensuring that you're showing up today for the job that you want tomorrow, and that you're supported with mentorship and sponsorship, because the two of those things are different and are necessary to advance the pipeline of women leaders. So I'm looking always for women who are comfortable in their space, that speak their truth, that are also about getting results, and also able to own spaces that they're in as well, without fear or intimidation.
Okay. Again, coming from a marketing perspective, obviously, my approach as someone who still works in marketing now in my own space as an entrepreneur, we base our business around storytelling. Storytelling is critical when it comes to the space of marketing. Can you give us an example of how, even from that perspective, marketing can accelerate real inclusion? So not just a fluffy campaign, not just something that looks good on social media, but actually generates and propels real inclusion in the workspace.
And I think this is going to happen when we allow people to really, really tell their own stories. And when I say that, to showcase the talent that has been developed in these organizations, from a woman's perspective, and the journey of what it took to get where they are. The blood, sweat, the tears, and to be truthful about that, and to have that out in the open in a way that doesn't diminish in any way the accomplishment, but really speaks truth to what a lot of women face in the workplace. A lot of these things are they happen and they're a bit hush-hush. Nobody really talks about it. But to really allow that story to be told in its truest form, I think is going to really encourage and inspire the next generation of women leaders to step forward and unleash their potential as a result of hearing that. Because I'm not the only one. I'm not alone in this journey. And this is the thing that can inspire, I think, women to really take the step forward. Those that are still in that volcanic state where the lava hasn't yet exploded, I think that's how we do it.
Yeah, those who are still sitting in the potential energy space,
Correct.
you want to move into kinetic energy.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. And again, from the corporate sponsor standpoint, what advice would you give to other partners who want to have impact in this space beyond just logo placement, beyond, it looks good for us to sponsor an event like this? What advice would you give them?
I'd say to really search within the organization, search within your leadership, to really appreciate the fact that you can put a logo on anything, but what in fact are you doing to advance the progression of women in your organization, right? So coming to this conference, even if you're sponsoring the conference, really come with an open mind. Come to learn, come to grasp the concepts that you can take back to your organization and apply to the growth and development of women in leadership in that space. Don't come with preconceived notions. Come to really understand, is what I would say. But also sponsor, because every organization in this country, if I'm not mistaken, and I as the HR professional, all have women in the organization. And again, I talked earlier about the context of what their experience is like. Come so that you can understand sometimes what your own internal bias, if you're a male leader. So I would also invite men, I'm sure can come as well, come to understand, right? So that you can deal with your own internal bias towards how you view women in the workplace as well.
Right.
And of course, women themselves, their own internal bias as to how they view themselves in the workplace and how they can advance forward. Yeah.
That's critically important. So let's take a look at some leadership toolkit things, right? Like as we start to, because we want to kind of give people an idea of a taste of what they can get when they come to the conference, right? So let's look at some leadership toolkit things, and I want to get, Wenrick, one more thing from you. So personal brand is career capital, right? So obviously you walk the line of two spaces. And personal branding obviously is personal marketing. It's how you present yourself. It's how you carry yourself. So when you look at, LinkedIn is obviously a key component now of how people approach, doing job searches, initial engagement with potential career opportunities. What advice would you give someone who is preparing to come to this conference over the next 2 or 3 weeks? Because they're obviously going to have an opportunity to network when they get here. Whether it comes to their LinkedIn and elevator pitch, so this is someone who is looking to, either enhance their career, maybe make a career change. What is some advice that you would give them?
I would say that if you're not on LinkedIn, you are committing career sabotage and suicide to a degree. This is the Facebook of the professional world, right? And this is where you can showcase your achievements, and also the timeline of the progression that you have been on as far as your career has been, to outline that, but also to join conversations that are happening on the global professional space, and even share thought. You could share your own thought leadership nuggets or that of others. And it's a great place to network and build relationships as well. And in addition to that, there are all of these wonderful training modules that are available on LinkedIn as well to help you to elevate yourself in the world of work, whatever your profession may be, or even if you want to learn some new skill that's completely outside of your professional scope at present, right? And then the last part that you mentioned about your elevator pitch, this is a real thing. So you never know who you're going to meet, when you're going to meet them, how you're going to meet them. And you never know one connection can be the catalyst for that next phase of your life, a new door open. So always being prepared with that 1 minute or 30-second pitch about who you are, what drives you, and to kind of give a summary of yourself in that quick 30-second moment with whomever it is you're talking to can transform your life, right? And so definitely I would say to be mindful of that. And as you come to this conference, because Annette, as you would see, the lineup of speakers is going to be dynamic. You do not know who you are going to get the opportunity to have a conversation with. You may be able to walk past and shake hands with the senior VP at Atlantis, or with my president, or with somebody else, another AVP in another space. You just do not know. Be prepared. I would actually tell you, walk with your CV. Yeah, walk with it, because you just don't know, and that sort of thing. So be open to that, understanding that networking happens every single moment of the day, and how you present yourself, even the way you look, the way you dress, the way your deportment, your grooming, all of those things matter. The moment we meet someone, we see someone, we almost can't help ourselves, head to toe.
Yep.
We are assessing, right?
Yep.
How we speak, the way that we articulate, all of those are things about your personal brand. But definitely, if you're not on LinkedIn, oh my goodness, what are you doing?
Yeah. So get your LinkedIn tuned up and polish up your elevator pitch and your CV, walk with it in hand. So we talked about personal brand as career capital. Another thing that we look at when we talk about this toolkit, and Wenrick mentioned it in his answer a few questions ago. What is the difference between sponsorship and mentorship when you're talking about career advancement, that sort of thing? because I know that was, like I said, it's something that he mentioned, and I'm trying to work through it. I get mentorship. I think the sponsorship part is maybe where people may not understand, well, what does that mean and how does that differ?
Mentorship, that person who is the mentor provides skill and guidance to someone in the workplace, or it could be in a civic organization. The sponsor is usually a senior leader in the organization who uses their influence to provide growth opportunities and promotion opportunities for the person who reports to them. So that person may even say, you know what, we see Alexis as the next vice president of marketing. I would like for us to do A, B, and C to get him that promotion within a year. So that's usually the difference. So the coach guides, the sponsor more or less acts and uses his or her influence.
Right. So it sounds like, and pardon me if I'm butchering this, but it sounds like a mentor typically sits, if it's in your organization, someone who's closer to like your direct report, someone who's in closer leadership to you, whereas a sponsor may be someone who is a little bit further up in the organization, and you're talking about it from two different standpoints. I got it.
And in fairness, a mentor could be someone who's internal as well as external. Right?
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. This question is an important one, managing burnout. This is a topic that has been so heavy in a lot of different spaces. We've had conversations on this podcast with mental health professionals about, managing the workplace and burnout being a critical topic in that space. For you who has worked in HR and had to manage this dynamic of, okay, we want to get the most out of this employee, but we also want to have the employee be as healthy as possible. What would you say, and I'll ask you to answer this from two perspectives. What would be one policy from an HR leadership perspective, but then for the person themselves as a leader personally, what is a personal habit that they should develop in order to navigate and set and manage boundaries to avoid burnout?
I'll start with the last question first. Personally, for me, one of the things that I try to do is always find moments. Some may say meditation, but those quiet moments for me, when it's just me and I'm alone and I'm able to think through how something went, I'm able to strategize on something that I want to do. But I'm finding, and perhaps it's the older I get, I'm finding that those quiet one-on-one Annette moments are really, really important to my own mental well-being. From an organizational perspective, I would recommend to HR professionals, and not only HR professionals, but I think organizational leaders do not understand that they too have a role in shaping policies to keep their employees healthy and well. And so I would say from an organizational perspective, having a strong wellness program is important. We don't realize that wellness is not just about exercise and the physical aspect, but wellness is also now more and increasingly we're talking about mental health. What can we do to keep employees grounded? And so as organizations, we talk about like work-life balance. Well, really, what is that? When you keep talking work-life balance, but when I'm on vacation, my work cell phone keeps ringing, and then the organization is prepared to be upset when I don't answer the phone when I'm on vacation. And so, or having meetings that start at 5:30 when the workday is from 9 to 5. And so, I find my experience has been that as leaders, we talk it, but our actions say otherwise, and we have to find a way to, have those two things interact in a more positive way.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the experience where leadership talks it in the largest space, but even when they talk amongst leadership, like I had a senior executive in one of my career stops literally say, work-life balance is a joke. And it's crazy because when you go and you talk to the wider corporate audience, you're talking about the importance of work-life balance. But to your leaders, you're saying this is not a thing that exists. And I think that's some of the things that I think a conference like this and continuing to kind of plug these important things like wellness and what that really looks like, it becomes so critical because you can help to change the culture and change the narrative within the corporate space. Yes, you want to get the most out of your employees, but guess what? A sick or a mentally unwell or a dead employee gives you nothing. And so we have to be able to be mindful of that. And therefore, we have to practice, like you said, you have to practice what you preach. One more thing in this space, what would you say people should have as, you come out of conference, because we know how this goes. We've all gone to conference, especially if you travel for it. You go to conference, you have this great experience, you come back or you go back into the workplace and it's like, now what? So what would you recommend as just a 30-day, even a 2-week post-conference action plan for your attendees? What would you recommend to them to take what they're going to learn from this and really put it into meaningful practice so that it's not something that's just like you have this high and then you crash?
So Alexis, we've talked about it already on this podcast. The fact that we've gone out of our way to bring in a diverse group of speakers and diverse set of topics is an indication of what we would like our attendees to take away. And in fact, I came up with an acronym, IEC. The intention is to inspire, educate, and have our attendees connect. And so as part of our data gathering for this conference, we have all of the email addresses of our attendees. The intention for us is to stay in touch, because we realize that within 2 weeks to a month, like you said, that high may die. And so throughout the year until the next conference, we want to be able to provide inspirational stories about other women who have done something really meaningful. It could be adventurous or daring, but who are unapologetically making a determination to walk into purpose. And so we're going to be staying in touch with them. We're going to also send the message that depending on where we sit in an organization, we may not always be the decision makers. And so our ideas, our inspiration, these may be things that diminish over time. So what do? We recognize and we accept that we don't always have the power to change the things that we want to change. However, we can be intentional and determined to take one little step or peg at something that we think is really, really something that we want to do. And we keep going at it every so often and chipping away, because understanding that change is not an overnight process, it's very much gradual. We'll understand that sometimes it may not take a day or a month or 3 months. It may take 6 months, it may take a year. But if we keep chipping at this one thing that we want to change in an organization, keep throwing ideas, sometimes putting those ideas into a formal a proposal for our senior leaders, that's the way that we get to see the kind of change and value an organization can have. And those are the kinds of things that we want to keep harping at when our attendees leave the conference, exit the conference room.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about like the nuts and bolts of the conference, right? What is this going to look like? What can people expect? Are you going to have workshops? Are you going to have specific opportunities for networking? Like, what can people expect when they come in? Is it a 1 day? Is it a 2 day? What does it all look like?
So it is a 1-day conference, September 19th, 2025, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the National Training Agency. A big focus for me when I've spoken with executives and senior leaders of the organizations is don't just send your CFOs, your chief operating officers, your senior VPs and VPs. Look at those emerging female leaders in your organization as well. The people who you've seen over time have worked hard and have tremendous potential. We want them to come as well, so that they too can be inspired to become the leaders you believe they're capable of becoming. And so over that 1 day, we will have panel discussions, we will have individual speakers. Our youngest speaker is a Gen Zer, and she is not a senior leader in an organization. She is not a manager. She's a pharmacy tech, but she has a story to tell. Extremely intelligent young lady. And so with this conference, we want people to also understand you don't have to be a particular age. Everyone will not look like Annette Cash. We will have millennials, and we will have the Gen Zers who will be there. But you will be able to walk hand in hand and connect during specific spaces with these other women. They can also expect to have fun. I do not want this to be the typical conference where the speakers are on a stage and simply talk down to the audience. That will not be happening. In fact, upon registration, we have on our registration form 10 superpowers that women have. Whether you're courageous, bold, reliable, competitive, and you will have to select one of those superpowers because we will have activities around those superpowers. As well, we will have fun. We have bought flags for every conference bag, so when you hear that conference song, you're going to get up to dance, right? We're going to have fun. We'll have a lot of giveaways as well at the conference, and as the part of the way we've structured the conference too is to allow from time to time each table to just have discussions about what a previous speaker has said and how one or two things from that presentation that really resonated with them as an audience. So this is going to be an experience, Alexis.
Awesome. Do you have, is the conference going to be virtual? Is there going to be virtual access?
So no,
Okay.
This is completely an in-person conference.
Okay. All right. We look for that in the future then. Awesome. So let's wrap up with, where people can go to register, the rate for registration, if there's group rates, if there's any other information around what this process looks like. Where do they go to register? What can they expect? Just take it away.
So again, the conference is on Friday, September 19th, and it will be held at the National Training Agency on Gladstone Road from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Persons can go to www.bluechipconsulting.limited, and I will repeat that, www.bluechipconsulting.limited to register. We have also been from about March of this year on LinkedIn, Facebook, so people can find us there, TikTok, Instagram, every social media. We've been sending information around via WhatsApp. And if you don't want to do any of those things, then you can certainly email us, info@bluechipconsultingltd.com. Or if you don't want to email, you don't want to go to LinkedIn or Facebook, you can call us if that's easier. So the numbers to call us are 466-4419, and I will repeat that, 466-4419, or 456-0578, 456-0578. So again, this is going to be an experience. A DJ will be in the house. So get ready to share, to laugh, to dance, and understand that we are inviting every woman from every industry, from every generation, and from every island of the Bahamas to join us. The information is already in Exuma, Freeport, Abaco. And so I'm hoping that what we have shared on LinkedIn and all the other social media platforms, it has already reached every island of the Bahamas. I would say that seats are limited, so do not delay. Our early bird rate ends Friday, 22nd August, $175. The late registration fee is $225. That includes a conference bag, breakfast refreshments, and lunch. Can't get it any cheaper than that. Alexis, the last thing I would want to do before leaving is to thank those sponsors who have believed in this idea that I'm giving birth to. Jamel Enterprises, first on board to say yes. So I want to thank Ethan Moss, the CEO of Jamel Enterprises. We are also joined in sponsorship by NAD, NIB, RF Bank and Trust, Commonwealth Bank, and Small Business Development Center. So I thank all of them for believing in this vision that we have and can promise an awesome conference experience.
Awesome. That is 100% exciting to hear all of the different things that people can expect from the conference. I will ask you to finish this sentence and then I'll let you go. Women in the Bahamas will unleash more power when
they are inspired to believe more deeply into who they are and what their purpose is, and understand that they can walk unapologetically into their purpose.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annette Cash and Wenrick Clarke. This has been an awesome episode, awesome conversation. I wish you all the success with your conference. It sounds like it's going to be a blast.
Thanks, Alexis. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And let me say one last thing. If you have not registered for this conference, again, time, there's a value on time, right? And there's a law of diminishing return. You're not getting smarter by not registering, right? So please, please, please register and bring all your family, your friends, and come out because you're going to get some real deep knowledge landed on you as a part of your being there, all right?
Awesome. So again, special thanks to Annette Cash and Wenrick Clarke for a powerful conversation. For conference details and registration, Annette mentioned them, but we'll also put them in the link for the description for the show. And be sure to share this episode with a colleague who's ready to level up and ready to unleash their power. As always, we appreciate you tuning in each week for the nation's most vital conversations where insight meets impact. And until next time, stay informed, stay connected, stay well, and stay tuned for the next Vital Voice.
We'd like to thank today's sponsors, Oak Tree Medical Center and Wellspring Lifestyle Group.
Are you enjoying Vital Voices? Do you find our conversations educational, engaging, and inspiring? Then like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell to keep updated on new episodes and more.
Vital Voices.